Whoever just joined, welcome. My name is Federica, part of the DocCT team, and I'm here with Dylan. He's the Associate Director of MBA Admissions at Fordham University, Gabelli School of Business. Just before leaving the floor to Dylan, I wanted to remind you all there will be a dedicated time for all of your questions at the end of the presentation. So write them into the Q&A box and we will be answering at the end of the presentation. Dylan, I'll leave you the floor.
All right, thank you, Federica. And I think it's tremendous to see representation all over the world. That is tremendous. It is noon here in New York City, so I guess I'll say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're calling in from today. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy days to learn a little bit more about Fordham University's Gabelli School of Business right here in New York City. And Federica just kind of discussed the agenda already. I'll probably be presenting for about 40 minutes or so. But as she said, please, as questions come in, put them into the chat box, because I think it's really important to dedicate a good portion of the end of this webinar to answering your questions. You took the time to be here today. We want to be here to obviously accommodate your questions. But without further ado, I'm going to jump into the presentation, starting off by talking about our MBA programs. And actually, even before I do this, because I think, I'm not sure what programs you are all interested in, but I do think it's important to note the differences between MBA programs and specialized master's programs. I think typically students have some misconceptions about the differences. So as I go through discussing the MBA and then the MS programs, I will shed some light on the differences as far as profile of student and really what the degree is designed to do. So starting off with the MBA is really a breadth degree, right? It's a management degree where you're covering all of the different foundations of business. And I'm going to go specifically into the curriculum for the full-time MBA. As you see here, we have 3 MBA programs here at Gabelli, the full-time, the professional, and the executive. The professional and executive MBAs are working professionals programs. So these are programs designed for people who are typically working in New York City and pursuing their MBA part-time. Given that most of you are coming from all over the world, I think the main one to focus on will be the full-time MBA. So I will go into specifics regarding the curriculum in a second, but just to give you a snapshot regarding how the program is structured. So it's a 2-year program with classes that take place during the day in your first year, and then a combination of daytime/nighttime classes in your second year. Average years of work experience, we have 7 years listed here, but typically we're looking for people who have between 4 to 7 years of work experience. And right there, I think, is one of the biggest differences between an MBA student and a specialized master's student. At Fordham and at a lot of American-based MBA programs, work experience is a prerequisite to apply, right? Most students in a full-time MBA student program in the States is a young professional, someone who's been working, and they're at the point in their career where they're looking to make some sort of career pivot. And when I use the term pivot, that can mean a lot of things. That can mean someone who's looking to change industries. It could mean someone looking to stay within the same industry, but they want to change their functional role. Whatever the pivot might be, that is the nature of a full-time MBA student, someone who knows they want to change and they want to leverage the MBA in order to help successfully facilitate that transition to a new career. So to go into the specifics regarding the curriculum for the full-time MBA, as I mentioned, it's a 2-year program. This first year, the row there that says year 1, as you can see, that your schedule is already selected for you, right? These are courses that really cover the scope of all of the foundations of business. And really the philosophy behind any MBA program is that you are going to be getting this baseline proficiency in all of these areas of business in your first year. And then in your second year, you'll have that opportunity to specialize in a specific functional area. But that first year where you're lockstep with your cohort in these foundational courses is a really important part of the degree. oftentimes I get people who ask me, listen, I'm looking to work in finance. Why do I have to take a marketing class? Why do I have to take, a statistics course when really all I want to do is finance? I always tell these students, remember, this is a management degree. So while your functional role might be finance after you've graduated from the program, you as an effective manager have to have a baseline proficiency in other functional roles of your company, right? There's a good chance you are managing someone who works in the marketing department or managing someone who works in the accounting department. And while that might not be your day-to-day, any effective manager has to be able to speak the language of all of the forces on the business. So that's really what that first year is designed to do, to give you those foundations. Your second year is when you specialize. That's when you start to really hone in on your specific interests and the skills that you're looking to develop in the program. So just to give you a quick sense of the categories in which you can select elective courses, these are we call them concentrations, primary and cross-functional concentrations. One thing to point out, because I think this is another misconception that a lot of students have when they start our MBA program, a lot of students will look at these concentrations and they will liken them to majors in undergrad, in the sense that they feel like they're going to have to select only one, and they'll have to really limit their electives to just that one concentration. Concentrations are not like majors when you were pursuing your bachelor's degree. I think the easiest way to think about them is that they're categories. They're categories in which we offer elective courses. How you go about distributing electives across concentrations is ultimately up to you. If you want to take 8 electives across 8 different concentration areas, go for it, right? There is never a process where you have to declare any sort of concentration. So keep that in mind, that we really have a flexible approach when it comes to how you want us to specialize in your second year. Obviously, depending on the nature of the career transition you're looking to make, it may make more sense to specialize in 1 or 2 concentration areas, right? If you're looking to work in big bulge bracket bank investment banking and you have no background in finance, your academic advisors are going to tell you, you should probably take as many finance courses as you can. But obviously, not everyone is making a leap of that magnitude. So just keep that in mind. The one requirement is that you take 8 elective courses, but ultimately how you distribute them will come down to your interests and the skills that you're looking to develop before you graduate. Okay. A couple of other things I want to, and also just take note, you can get a snapshot of the cohort there on the right, just to give you a sense of the makeup of the class. But I want to quickly talk about some of these boxes here that have colored frames around them. So the internship takes place in the summer between your first and your second year. That's the box there in green. The internship is a critical part of this process. People in a full-time MBA program are people who have left their job and they're looking to land a new job. And sometimes students will come in and they'll think, well, I don't really have to worry about applying to full-time jobs until my second year. I have 2 years to figure out where I'm going to, what career I'm going to try to pursue. But the reality is the first domino that needs to fall in order for you to have a successful transition into your new career is landing this internship between the first and the second year. That is the path of least resistance for getting a full-time job. The majority of our students who receive a full-time job, an MBA caliber level position, intern at the company first, and then are offered a full-time job contract upon leaving the internship. And so what I always tell students is the career development process really starts before you set foot in New York City. Right, you need to have a game plan as far as what type of industry you want to work in, what types of companies you want to work for, what kind of functional role you want to take on. You have to have an idea because you're going to be spending that first year applying to positions, interviewing, networking based around the types of companies where you want to work for. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're looking at our MBA program or really any MBA program. the career development process starts really, really early. If you see that box there at the top left in the red, Gabelli Launch was designed to help you in that career development process. We realized that a lot of students were feeling overwhelmed when they first arrived in New York City, and we wanted to give them more time to help develop their roadmap for what types of jobs they wanted to pursue, etc. So Gabelli Launch, it's a pre-term. It takes place over the course of a month prior to the start of your classes. So typically classes will start around September 1st. We actually bring full-time MBA students to campus around August 1st. So you have a whole month to get to know the cohort, to start building that roadmap, like I mentioned, for your career development process. And there's some other, modules that you'll cover in Gabelli Launch, like a quantitative boot camp and things of that nature. One of the highlights of Gabelli Launch is also an international trip. So previously we've gone to, I don't know if anyone said they were from Argentina. I know we had some people from South America in the chat. I'm not sure I saw Argentina, but in the past, we've gone to Argentina to do consulting work. It's still up in the air what destination the full-time MBA students will be going to in August of next year, but we are committed to giving you some sort of international immersion as part of that Gabelli Launch pre-term. And then the last thing I'll mention before I move on to specialized master's programs, the Global Industry Project there, which is the box in blue, that's actually another consulting project that takes place over the course of your spring semester with a built-in global immersion as part of the class. So the way that project works, you're put into groups of 4 to 5. You're assigned a London-based client, and you are working as a consultant would on putting together a deliverable for that client. You're doing that remotely throughout the spring, and then the entire cohort will travel to London for about a week or so, and every group will go and present their deliverable on site at their client's company. So that's another one of the highlights of the MBA experience is that trip to London. And again, pretty unique that you're able to go on 2 trips in your first year as part of the cohort. So that's everything regarding the full-time MBA. I do want to talk about our specialized master's programs, and it's always tough to talk about the MS programs, mainly because we have so many, and it would certainly take a while to go into the specifics for every single one. So I am going to talk about these programs at a macro level, but what I will say is, and Federica will share my information as part of the follow-up for this webinar, but email me if you have specific questions about any of these MS programs, and I'd be happy to put you in touch with the admissions officer in our unit that represents that program. I specifically represent the finance and quantitative finance programs, as well as the full-time MBA. So I would be your point of contact for any of those programs. But just to give you kind of the macro level overview of what we offer here, as you can see, we like to group these specialized masters based off of specific function, right? So you have analytics programs, so the applied statistics, business analytics, and marketing intelligence programs. They fall under what we kind of consider that analytics umbrella. So if you're looking for jobs in where you work with a lot of data, take a look at either of those 3 programs. Business technology, we have what we colloquially call the MSIT program. Finance, quantitative finance, and finance. But one thing I will point out, because I typically get this question, what's the difference between finance and quantitative finance? The main difference is quantitative finance is a very robust quantitative degree that's aimed for people who are looking to work in quant roles within financial services, whereas finance is much more open-ended. So you can pursue a lot of different avenues, whether it's investment banking or investment management or working in fintech. Finance is much a broader program as far as the types of careers that you can pursue. Management, the three that fall under management are the MSM program, the Media Management program, and Strategic Marketing Communications. Take note that the Strategic Marketing Communications degree is only online, so we actually don't have an in-person format for Strategic Marketing Communications. And then finally, professional services, so professional accounting and professional taxation. One thing I will point out, because I do think that, as I alluded to earlier, that some students have difficulty kind of gauging the difference between an MS program and an MBA program. So whereas a full-time MBA program, most full-time MBA programs in the States are 2-year degrees that are designed for someone who's been working for 4, 5, 6 years. MS programs are designed for people who haven't worked before, right? The majority of people who pursue specialized masters have worked usually for a maximum of 1 year, but typically a lot of them are coming straight from undergrad. The nature of the program is also very different. So the MBA, as I said before, it's a breadth degree, right? You're getting a broad foundation across all of these foundational areas of business. The MS degrees are a depth degree, right? You are becoming an expert in a specific functional role rather than taking all of the functional business courses. So that's another big differentiator, right? If you're in a quantitative finance degree, you're not going to be taking a lot of economics courses, right? You're not going to be taking a lot of strategy courses. You're going to be taking primarily finance courses and the math courses and statistics courses that deal specifically with finance. Just keep that in mind. Federica, I know the questions are for the end, but just a couple of quick ones that I'll answer because these are fairly quick. Yes, people with 2 or 3 years of experience, Diana, absolutely can apply. It's not the norm. Again, people who have 3 years who are looking to pursue a degree typically are looking for an MBA degree, but for some people, they're not looking to spend 2 years in a program. They're looking to just take that 1 year to do a deep dive into one specific subject. So absolutely, having years of work experience is not going to mean you're going to get denied from the program. It's just not the norm. And then Syed had a question about information technology. So Syed, I'll follow up with you specifically because I'm not going to have time to go into specifics for all of these programs, but I will follow up with you specifically, give you some more information on that program, and also put you in touch with the admissions rep who oversees that program. So that's everything with our Masters of Science programs. I do want to spend just a little bit of time here talking about career development, because that is a critical part of this experience that you're looking to pursue, right? You're looking to pursue business education because you're looking to enhance your career options. And I think when you're doing your research for any type of business degree or business school, make sure that you're looking at their career services, because again, there is a correlation between how involved you are with the career development offices at a business school and the likelihood that you'll succeed in landing the job that you're looking to pursue. So just to give you kind of a snapshot of where our students have landed in the past, this is a small snapshot. We only have one slide here, so I couldn't put all of the companies, but you can get a good sense of the diversity as far as industry and where our students are landing once they finish both their MBA and their specialized master's degrees. And just to give you a sense of the type of services that our career services office will offer. So a lot of one-on-one career advising. I think one of the benefits of being a business school that really prides itself in having small classes and small programs overall means you're going to get a lot of personalized attention, not only from faculty members, but more importantly from the career development staff. And so I think the model of our career office is also really important to note, because it's a unique model where every counselor in that office has previously worked for decades in the industry that they're counseling upon. So what I mean by that, if you're looking to work in finance, you work with Ellen Herman, who was a managing director at an investment bank for over 20 years, right? So she knows the ins and outs of financial services. She knows, what the types of things you have to consider when you're going to interview. She obviously is someone who comes with her own personal network based off of her years of experience in industry. So keep that in mind, whether it's marketing, whether it's tech, whether it's, you're looking to work on kind of the consumer goods side, we have counselors that have experience working in those spaces. So definitely a unique structure when it comes to the people that you're dealing with in career services. And I think the biggest thing, that as you can see from this list of services that they offer, a lot of it is tangible job application related stuff. So, making sure that your resume looks presentable for employers, making sure that you're ready to interview effectively when you have that opportunity to land a job. So that's one category of services. But the other category of services is they are the liaison between you and the Fordham alumni network that is really all over the world, but I would say specifically located all throughout New York City. And so I do quickly want to talk about this because, we titled this webinar New York City. And I think that at the end of the day, being a business school located in what many people consider to be the business capital of the world is our biggest value proposition as a business school. I'm gonna throw out a question here. You guys can answer in the chat box, but say yes or no. How many of you have been to New York City in your life?
Yes, let us know. Okay,
Diana has. Syed, no. Okay. So great. So I just wanted to make sure. Never. Okay, very good. Well, you guys are missing out. Maybe you guys got to come to New York and attend Fordham to get the New York City experience. Diana says it's amazing. It definitely is amazing. But I do think for people who may not be familiar with New York City, Manhattan is the primary island where all of the companies are located, right? It's the highest concentration of Fortune 500 companies in the world, right on this island here in Manhattan. And we are in Midtown Manhattan. So we are literally in the heart of the business capital of the world. We're right there on 60th Street, right next to Central Park. And I think that proximity to companies is critical when you're going to business school. You all will be so sick of the term networking by the time you finish your business degree. And I think, networking is not something that comes naturally to people, but it is a critical part of the process if you want to be successful in landing a job, right? The days of sitting behind a computer and applying to jobs through job portals without reaching out to anyone, those days are in the past, right? Especially if you're looking to pursue competitive positions at a place like Goldman Sachs or at a place like, PepsiCo, right? There are so many people applying that in order for you to have an opportunity to even interview, you have to network, right? You have to go out and make these connections with people in the industry. And that's where I think the location is most valuable. We have over 11,000 Fordham alums that still work in New York. Fordham is one of the oldest private schools in New York City. It's a household name. When you walk through the streets of New York, you see a lot of people wearing Fordham gear, right? And that network is a loyal network that wants to help current students. And I think that ability to be able to, within 10 minutes, go to any of the companies in Manhattan, whether it's by subway or by taxi or by walking, that is a huge value proposition that students who are not in New York, they don't have that opportunity. I had a friend who attended a great MBA program outside of New York. It was in a different area of the States. And most MBA programs will actually pay to have their students come and do networking over, a couple of days during their program. So they actually fly them to New York to do networking. And he was explaining to me that it's almost impossible to do networking that way. where you are in New York for maybe 48 hours, you're reaching out to people to have coffee, saying, hey, I'm Dylan, can you meet me between 2 and 4 p.m. on Thursday? Well, there's a good chance that person is not even in the country. They're traveling for work, right? And so I think that ability to reach out to alums and say, I'm Dylan, I'm at Gabelli at Midtown, you name the day, you name the place, and I'll be there. I think that flexibility when it comes to networking is critical. The other thing I was going to mention as far as the advantages of being in New York City, a lot of your classes are actually going to be taught by working professionals in New York City. So every program will have obviously their traditional faculty members, people who hold the highest degree in their field. But then on top of that, you will have the opportunity to take electives, excuse me, with practitioners that are working during the day, and they come and they teach a class in the evening. So they're actually giving you a real world perspective on the subjects that they're teaching about. So that's another advantage, right? That you're so close to people who want to teach, but who are also working. You get that opportunity to take classes with these people who are experts in their respective spaces. All right, so, and I see some questions about the admissions process and scholarships and things of that nature. So I'm going to jump in right now to kind of discuss these requirements. I'm not going to go into too many specifics regarding this list, because I think it's pretty straightforward as far as here's what you have to submit in order to be considered or to have a complete application for any of the programs, whether it's MBA or specialized master's. The one thing I will point out, though, is the GMAT or GRE or the executive assessment requirement. I know that's typically the component that people are most stressed about. We have made that requirement optional. That's a decision that was made during the pandemic, and we've carried it over from last year into this year. So ultimately, the decision to submit a GMAT or a GRE will be up to you. The one thing I will say is when we do have a GMAT or a GRE score, we are looking to extract primarily your ability to handle the quantitative nature of the program that you're applying to. So when you are considering, well, should I submit a GMAT? Should I submit a GRE? If you don't, that is fine, but we will be looking elsewhere in your application for evidence of your ability to handle the quantitative nature of the program. So if you are, you pursued an undergrad that's not very quantitative in nature, that's fine. You can still apply, but you'll want to provide us with some evidence that you can handle the quantitative nature of the program. So that means, if you don't want to submit a GMAT, you can always take an online Coursera course and upload your diploma from that Coursera course. That's a really popular way to kind of show us your quantitative abilities instead of submitting a GMAT or GRE. Whatever the process you want to pursue, whether it's you feel strongly that your undergrad degree or the work that you do at your job is quantitative enough, and you don't want to submit a GMAT, that's fine. Or if you feel, well, I don't want to submit a GMAT or a GRE, but I want to submit something that shows, in addition to my resume and my transcript, that I can handle quant work, by all means, that can certainly help your application. But at the end of the day, that requirement is optional. And listen, I'm someone who is one of the biggest proponents for making this optional, because I think, as I mentioned earlier, so many students will lose sleep over what is ultimately a data point. The GMAT or GRE score is a data point, and there are so many other aspects of your application that are, back when we required the GMAT or GRE, they were neglected by applicants. They put all of their energy into this one exam. But there's all of these other important components that you have to consider. I always tell, kind of at a macro level, to give you a sense of how we evaluate applicants, regardless of the program, we're looking at you through two perspectives. So one perspective is the business school perspective. So are you someone who can come and handle the work? Are you going to be a good community member? Are you going to be active in the classroom and outside of the classroom, et cetera? That's one very important perspective. The other perspective, though, is the employer perspective, right? We put on an employer hat and we evaluate you as if we were, the hiring manager for, the companies that you're looking to work for at the end of the degree. Because at the end of the day, we are looking to set you up for success. And part of our job is to make sure that we can piece together what you've been doing and what you want to do after the degree and make sure that we can help you get there, right? So I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of students make, primarily for the MBA degree, is that they're vague when they're talking about their short-term and long-term career goals. That will be an essay question that you'll have to answer for any of the programs. Where do you want to end up in your career? And if you haven't done your research and you are vague when answering that question, either in an interview or in your essay questions, that'll be a yellow flag for us, because we want students that are going to come and they're going to hit the ground running. Obviously, interests can change in a program, and that's fine. But at a baseline, when you are presenting your application to us, we want to make sure we have a sense of where you want to go, because we don't want to set you up for failure. So making sure that you're doing your research as far as where you want to end up, right? Work backwards. Start with the end goal and let that kind of determine how you populate your application. That's my best piece of advice for you, rather than doing it the opposite way, right? Starting an application and then trying to figure out what your career goals are. It should work the reverse way. Start at the end and then work backwards. You can see here just kind of the timeline for when you can get a decision. So it's typically a 4 to 5 week turnaround from when you submit the application. And then here are the deadlines. So some of the programs will have a spring intake. I've bolded those out because that deadline has passed. Obviously, if you're looking to apply for the following spring, it'll be a similar deadline around the beginning of November. The only programs that have a spring intake are accounting, media management, and taxation, as well as the part-time MBA program. Most students, though, are applying for a fall intake. And as you can see here, 2 rounds have already passed, but we do have 3 remaining, January 21st, March 25th, and May 27th. So you can apply by any of those rounds and still be considered for fall 2022. I see a lot of questions about costs and scholarships and things of that nature, so I do want to go into that. So here you'll see at the far left, the tuition cost for the various programs. The full-time MBA, it's a flat tuition rate. So that amount is cut into 4 payments throughout your 2 years. For the Masters of Science programs, these are the tuition is really on a per credit basis. So you're paying for the amount of credits that you're taking in a specific program. The majority of MS programs are going to be 30 credits. Some of the more rigorous programs like quantitative finance will have like upwards of 36, but the majority are going to be right around 30 credits or so. And then enrichment fees. So there's a lot of programming that goes into your experience beyond what you're doing in the classroom, right? I mentioned for the MBA, you go to London, you go to Argentina. MS programs have a lot of immersions that you do within New York and kind of within the Northeast in the US. And so these are enrichment fees that go with for all of the things that you're doing outside of the classroom to help kind of enrich your experience in the program. Obviously, as we lay out all our costs, we want to be transparent about the cost for attending one of our programs, but it's a big investment, right? Pursuing any graduate business degree is a big investment of money. It's a big investment of your time, and that's why really this notion that you're doing this because you want a return on that investment is the critical mindset going into this, right? Sometimes students are coming in and I see them not networking or not going out and meeting with the career development team. And I say, again, you attend a program like this because you know you're going to get a return. And I think that's such an important perspective to have when you're in any graduate business program, right? You have to take advantage of every opportunity when you are there. there are a lot of different ways that you can help finance the program. So I want to talk about merit-based scholarships first. There is no external process for applying for merit-based scholarships. We will evaluate everyone who applies for a merit-based scholarship. Just to give you, you can see here the range as far as scholarships for different programs. So the full-time MBA starts at $30,000, goes all the way up to a full tuition scholarship. For the Master of Science programs, which is less expensive than an MBA, the range is a little bit smaller from 10K to 30K. But again, nothing that you need to do beyond just submitting a strong application if you want to be considered for a scholarship. The other funding sources, so student loans, that kind of goes without saying. If you guys haven't, because I know a lot of you are coming or are calling in from outside of the US, check out Prodigy Finance, Prodigy. They are an international student lender for people looking to pursue programs in the US. They only lend to students applying to business schools in the top 100 or ranked in the top 100 from the Financial Times. So they're one of the best loan providers out there. They offer the lowest interest rates. And there are others similar to Prodigy out there. So student loans are one way to help subsidize the cost. Another popular way is graduate assistantships. These are essentially on-campus jobs that students will pursue, and the pay comes in the form of tuition remission. So you're not necessarily getting a check, but the hours that you work are deducted from your tuition bill. And just to give you a sense of how much they come out to, so you have two options. You can do a 10-hour-a-week position or a 20-hour-a-week position. The 20-hour-a-week position will ultimately deduct around a little bit more than $7,000 a semester from your tuition bills. And the nature of the positions can vary, right? So they can be administrative. We, as an admissions unit, make use of graduate assistants. I have graduate assistants working for me, helping me interview students, things of that nature. You can work with career services, the academic advising office, just to name a few. And then the other category are research graduate assistantship positions, where you're actually working with faculty members and helping them with research, or in some cases helping them with grading for a course. You know, it can span a lot of different types of responsibilities. But again, a lot of students will pursue these GA positions as a way to help kind of finance the degree. Alrighty, Federica, I hope I did pretty good on time here. I think we're going to have about 20 minutes. I'll leave this slide up. I mentioned earlier, I forget who asked the question about MSIT, but here is the rundown of people who work in our unit. And as you can see, the different programs that they represent. So for IT, I think it was Syed, I'm not sure, but George would be your go-to person. But please, we encourage you to reach out to us at any time. Please take down our email addresses. We're here to help you. And so any questions that aren't answered here today, we can certainly take it offline, and I'd be happy to set up a Zoom call or a phone call, whatever works, to answer all of your questions. So Federica, I'll leave this slide up for a little bit so people can take down the information, but I think we can jump into the questions.
Sure. So thank you so much, Dylan, for the presentation. I think it's great to leave these slides so people can just take notes. So yes, ready for your questions. So one of the first questions is if the Gabelli School of Business offers some sort of accommodation in New York.
Great question. So there are two answers to that question. Yes, we do offer accommodation. It's limited, and usually it's going to be reserved for specialized master's students. The majority of students in the MBA programs are going to be finding their own apartment in New York City. And I would say what we're seeing is a trend too with a lot of MS students. They're going to go and find their own apartment as well. But we do offer some student housing that you have to apply for. So that will be, once you've applied and you've been admitted, we follow up with a lot of information about kind of the housing process and how it works. We help support you, even if you're not going to be applying for some of the student housing that's right near the campus. We help you with your apartment search. We know that's a scary proposition for people who've never been in New York City before. So we're certainly there to help you with that. So the answer is yes, but again, a lot of students are opting out of the student housing and are living around New York City, mainly because New York City is one of for people who haven't been, everyone uses public transportation. Right there, it's not one of these cities where you have to drive everywhere. The majority of students, a majority of people in New York are taking the subway, taking cabs. It's a very walkable city. So you have a lot of kind of different opportunities as far as where you can live.
Perfect. So you mentioned about a team that gets back to the students. Can I ask, if someone puts an application through, how early they can expect to hear back from the admission team?
Yeah, so I think one of the key things to remember is once the application is complete. So, stay tuned when you hit submit. You'll if you're missing anything, you'll get an email from us. And really, the trigger to get your application read is that it has to be complete. So just stay tuned to your email. Sometimes we get people who've forgotten to upload, a specific element, and so they never get pushed through the process. But once your application is complete, typically it'll be around 4 weeks, 5 weeks maximum. Not every student will go through an interview. There are some people who get fast tracked based off of the strength of their application, and they don't have to go through an interview. Others who we feel aren't contenders, so we don't make them go through an interview. But a lot of students are going to have to go through an interview. And you select your interview date. So keep that in mind as well. If you're looking for an earlier decision, schedule your interview earlier. Typically, it's going to be about 2 weeks from when you interview. So once you've submitted your application, if you get a message from us saying, here's the calendar, schedule your interview, know that it's really 2 weeks from the date that you actually have that conversation with the admissions office.
Perfect. Question about, so we talked about MBA at the beginning and then went through the specializing masters. So why should I choose an MBA instead of a master?
Great question. I think that's a question that a lot of people have. So typically for people who are mid-career, when I'm having a conversation with them and they're like, I'm not quite sure if I want a specialized master's degree or a full-time MBA, it comes down to what I was saying earlier, which is, what is your ultimate goal in pursuing a business degree? If you're looking to change industries or change a role, right? You're looking to make some sort of career pivot. The MBA is typically the better route for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you've been working for 4 to 5 years and you want to make a career change, you want to start at a middle management level position in your new job, right? You don't want to have to start all over like you did when you were in undergrad at the bottom of the ladder, right? You've been working, you have, you already come with skill sets. You don't want to have to start all over. And that's what an MBA is designed to do. It manages mid-career transitions in a way where you're getting a salary that is appropriate for someone with your number of years of work experience. So people looking to make that mid-career transition. The problem with pursuing an MS degree, if you're looking to make a career pivot and you're someone who has 5-6 years of work experience, is that your opportunities are going to be limited as far as kind of mid-career positions are concerned. Right? When we have employers coming to recruit our MS students, they're recruiting for entry-level positions, right? They're not recruiting for 6-figure salaried positions like they are for MBA students. On the flip side, when our employers are coming to meet with MBA students, those are the positions they're looking to fill. So it's really about your expectation with where you want to end up. I think that's the most important criterion when you're thinking about the two.
Perfect. Talking about requirements, so English proficiency, they're asking us about IELTS or TOEFL, any sort of other certificate that you accept.
Yep, TOEFL, IELTS, the Duolingo as well. We accept in lieu of the IELTS or the TOEFL. And keep in mind, so this language assessment is really for anyone who has not studied in an English-speaking curriculum or English speaking program. So anyone who does not live in a country where English is the primary language, or someone who hasn't attended an institution where the curriculum is in English. Obviously, people have unique circumstances. If you've studied abroad for a long period of time, you feel strongly that you should have this requirement waived, reach out to us. On a case-by-case basis, we can certainly waive that requirement, but it is required for the majority of students that don't fit those criteria.
Lucas is asking about if for a master program you need to study something for the interview, and if it's competitive to get admitted. And finally, is it hard to live in New York? Can you work and study at the same time? So lots of questions. So
lots of questions, but great questions, Lucas. I'll start with the interview. The interview is really conversational in nature. We're not trying to trip you up. We're not going to ask you to solve equations or anything of that nature. It's an opportunity for you to expand on your application. We'll certainly ask questions based off of what you submitted in your application. We'll want to know a little bit more about your background. But it's really just an opportunity for us to get to know a little bit more about you, and for you to be able to obviously ask us questions. So there really is no preparation other than, make sure you know your story, right? Make sure you know why you're applying to business school, why you applied to Fordham specifically. I think that goes without saying, but there won't be anything that will really trip you up or require you to have to study or anything like that. You mentioned, is it competitive to get admitted? I mean, competitive, that's a subjective term, right? I think it's going to be dependent on the program. Some of our programs are more competitive than others. I think of quantitative finance as being extremely competitive because there's so many kind of things we're looking for as far as skill sets that you need to be admitted. But again, if you've done your due diligence and you are someone who takes your time with your application, you'll get admitted. I think that's the key thing, right? It's talk to admissions officers, right? If we have a sense based off your background, you're not going to be a good fit for X program, we'll likely refer you to another one. And that's another thing to keep in mind that I didn't mention, but a lot of times when we receive an application and we don't think they're a good fit for the specific program that they applied for, we will refer them to other programs. You'll have an opportunity in your application to tell us what your secondary program of interest is and what your tertiary program of interest is. And we will always vet those before we outright deny you from the business school as a whole. So keep that in mind as well. I think sometimes you might not be a good fit for one program, but we think you'd be a great fit for another. And so having that open mind is always important. Is it hard to live in New York? That's a great question. I'm actually not from New York originally, and I was terrified when I had to move to New York for the first time. I'm from a small town in the north where it's farmland with a lot of cows and like 3,000 people in our town. So the thought of moving to New York City was terrifying. I think like any move you make, there is an adjustment period, right? You have to adjust to learning the subway, to learning how to get around, how the streets work. But once you've settled in, I think majority of students will come and feel like they never want to leave. And I say that kind of loosely, but again, a lot of people come and just love it here. If you're younger, I think it's the perfect place to be. There's so much activity. There's so much to do. There is I think a culture here of people, really being, New Yorkers have a reputation of being really, mean and all they care about is work. And that's not really true, right? I think there's people who care a lot about their career, but they're also coming from all over the world. It is a melting pot of different cultures. And I think once you get past that transition period, I think you'll love it.
And finally, can you work and study at the same time? Is this something that you would advise, yes, or maybe not?
Good question. Actually, bear with me. I'm going to go back to one of our slides here. Oh, yeah, this one. So you'll see here for these programs, that second column there, part-time. All the programs that have that icon are programs that you can pursue part-time, meaning that you can work and at the same time, pursue the degree on a part-time basis. For those that are only offered full-time, a lot of students will take a semester off, typically in the summer, to do an internship. So we are very flexible when it comes to full-time students taking a semester off because they're getting great professional experience that could likely lead to a full-time job. We'll certainly support you in that. But as far as being able to balance the two for at the same time, really, you can only do that as a part-time student for the programs where that icon is present.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Another question, they're asking us if there is a huge difference in the curriculum of India to that of New York. Can you point a few things that majorly differ? I guess probably the decision to study in New York is any different if you study a master or an MBA in India or in New York?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think, are you asking specifically about the business school curriculum, or are you talking about your how we evaluate your undergrad curriculum?
Good question. So whoever maybe wrote that, if we can give maybe an insight, maybe we can tell what's the benefit of studying in New York?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think, because if you're talking about the MBA, I think, one thing that makes American, I won't even say New York, but just American MBA is a little bit different, certainly is this emphasis on the combination of foundational business courses with the ability to specialize. I think in Europe and other places, the MBA that are a lot of them are more concentrated. You're doing it in a year. The full-time MBA, American MBA, has a very similar structure across a lot of these programs in the States. It's exactly what we discussed, right? 2 years internship between the first and the second year. That's not the norm everywhere in the world. So I think that's one thing to take note of. And then, being in New York City specifically, I think that the real advantage there, I said earlier, you'll be sick of the term networking. I'm sure you're already sick of it just from this webinar, but the ability to network is really the differentiator. Can I share a quick story, Federica? Because I think it's important. It's a good story to give you a sense of how important this really is. So we typically meet with our counterparts at companies in New York, right? Again, that's the benefit of being right down the street from the JP Morgans or the Facebooks of the world, right? We can go and have coffee all the time. And I have gotten to know a lot of our counterparts. And I was meeting with the recruiter from Amazon and the recruiter from JP Morgan. And they were explaining to me, they were saying, we receive so many applications. About 90 to 95% of their hires are internal referrals, meaning that only about 5% of this huge stack of resumes that they receive every single day were selected for full-time jobs. And those are the people that just applied online and we're hoping they get a call back. Internal referrals means someone at their company went to HR and said, hey, you should interview this person. And the way the Facebook manager was, or Amazon manager was explaining it to me was, as soon as someone within the company sends me a resume, they automatically get selected to come in for an interview. It's a totally different process for people who are able to get that referral. And so again, you don't want to be in the stack of applications where it's like finding a needle in a haystack to even get the chance to interview. You want to be in that guaranteed interview pile. And you're only going to do that by going and reaching out to alums who work at that company or similar companies and start having those conversations. So again, that's just to give you kind of a little bit of perspective here. No one likes to network, but it's critical, right? You don't want to be in that first pile. You want to be on that second pile. And being in a place like New York, where you can have all of those touch points throughout your experience in any program, I think is just hugely valuable.
Thanks. Someone says, while you were speaking, you use kind of the terminology business technology. So is this something that if we can explain what you mean by business technology? Yeah,
absolutely. So, we've talked about I use the term functional roles a lot too. It's sometimes I get questions about that, but when it comes to any business, you think about all of the areas that make that business operate. Right? You need to have an accounting department. You need to take care of financial statements and credits and debits and things of that nature. You need your financing department to make sure you're raising money or whatever it might be. And then you have your technology department, which is essentially allowing your processes to work. And that's what the one business technology program that we offer is MSIT, really designed around kind of using technology for any kind of business operation. So if you go to our website, you can get kind of a list of the types of courses that are offered within MSIT, but that's what I mean by that term. Apologies if it was confusing. I know I throw out a lot of lingo.
No, absolutely. We did explain quite clearly during the webinar. Maybe we can just tell a little bit more about scholarships. So what's the best way to apply, if there is any sort of deadline for application, and maybe if you have any suggestion or advice for whoever is interested into applying for a scholarship.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So again, everyone is considered. There is a checkbox you select when you apply saying you want to be considered for a scholarship, but the reality is we really just consider everyone. When we evaluate you, we are evaluating you in the context of the applicant pool, right? So if you are a strong applicant within that pool, you're likely to receive a merit-based scholarship. So you don't have to lose sleep over, submitting a separate application or having to reach a different deadline. It will be the same deadlines that I listed before. I'm actually happy to pull that up again so you guys can see. So these are the deadlines, right? When you submit an application, as long as you meet that deadline, you're going to be considered for a scholarship. As far as, my one piece of advice is, be thorough with your application, right? Take a lot of time when it comes to putting your resume together and telling your story and writing your essays, because we do evaluate everything. We have multiple readers that will look at your application at some point in the process. So making sure that you're really diligent with every aspect of the application. And then one other thing I'll mention, just because I want to be transparent with you, but the reality is the earlier you apply, the more likely you are to receive a scholarship. And really that just comes down to dollars and cents, right? We have a scholarship budget. As we move throughout the year admitting students, that budget gets smaller. So it just becomes more competitive to receive awards for round 5 applicants than it is at round 3. Doesn't mean you're not eligible, doesn't mean you won't be considered, but again, less money and a lot of people looking for scholarships, it's just a little bit more competitive the longer you wait to apply. Great.
Question about the MBA program in terms of requirement. Is it enough, let's say, an undergraduate degree to apply for an MBA, or are there any specific other requirement in terms of academic or work experience?
Yeah, good question. So we do, having completed a bachelor's degree is required, and then the other big requirement is work experience. I typically get the students who've just graduated undergrad who tell me they want to get their MBA, and I explain to them it is not worth an investment of a program like this if you think you're going to be able to land a management level position without ever working before. And so, even people who come in with the lower years of work experience, they might have like 1.5, 2 years. They feel like that's enough and they apply. What I explain to them is this: you could be someone who is hugely successful in the classroom, but when it comes to employers, when they look at your resume, they're not going to come and interview you because you don't have the adequate years of work experience to get that 6-figure MBA caliber level position. And I keep on talking about return on investment. The tuition for an MBA program is extremely high. It's a big investment, and it's at that level because of the return that you get, right? The average salary for our full-time MBA students upon graduating is $120,000 US per year, right? But you're only going to land a position like that if you have work experience. And so we don't want to set up the students who come in with one or none. We don't want them to invest in a program when they're not going to be able to land that level, that caliber of position in the field. So work experience is critical, as well as having a bachelor's degree.
Another question from Manjola, I hope I'm pronouncing right, regarding the requirement to participate in the master degree. So I'm sure that each master might have a specific one, but maybe if you can guide where we can find this information also on the website.
Yep. So let's actually, maybe Federica, you can share. I'll send you a link. I'll pull it up in a second, but we have more information about all of this on our website. But right here, this list here on the left, this is what is required for all of the programs. Any of the specialized masters that we talked about, any of the MBA programs, this is really the comprehensive list. So it's the same requirements across all programs. And again, if you go to our website, and I'll share that with Federica so you guys can access it. But you'll get more information regarding what these requirements really entail. But that's it. There's nothing special that you have to do specifically for some programs over others. This is really kind of the comprehensive list.
Actually, talking about the website, just wanted to remind you all that we will be sending you a follow-up email after these events. It will contain some useful information, such as a link to get to the admission page and the website. And also we will share with you an email address that you can reach out in case you have any further questions, because of course, each application is different from the other, so the team will be able to support you. Coming towards the end of our webinar, I wanted to thank Dylan, but also wanted to ask if there was anything else that you wanted to share with us, with our audience today.
Well, again, thank you to everyone. I know you are all busy, and some of you, I'm sure it's late at night or early in the morning. So thank you for watching. And like Federica said, we're here to help. So this was a general overview of the programs that we offer here, but every applicant is different. Every applicant has different circumstances, and we're here to help kind of guide you through that process. This is a big decision that you're looking to make, to go to graduate business school, and we realize that, and we're here to support you. So please email myself, email anyone in our office. We're happy to jump on a Zoom call or just answer your questions via email, whatever really works on your end. But we're here to help you. I think that's probably the most important thing I want to share.
Thank you so much. And I just share with you a link so you can leave us your feedback, and then you can receive your certificate of attendance. So as mentioned, just check your inbox, because over the next few days, we will be sharing with you some interesting information. This webinar is also recorded, so you will be able to see a recording of this. So thank you so much, Dylan, and have a great rest of your day. We look forward to seeing all of you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.